Got a ton of jars on hand. Well, let's do something about that. I actually have gotten to the point now where when we go shopping, I'm even like, ooh, what's that food? Let's eat it because of the jar shape. Thankfully, I do love artichokes because these are beautiful jars to work with, and just they're too tempting not to do something with them. But who doesn't have a ton of these guys? The spaghetti sauce jars, the Atlas Masons. Really setting up an all parts test on here. This is just on this Atlas and Mason. I'm going to try just priming it first and then adding the spackling after it dries. And with this part of the Atlas, I'm going to put spackling in with the prime paint. Letting this part roll, but I did learn that it was better not to put the spackling into the primer. That was kind of pointless. Just go ahead and prime the glass first. Let it completely dry. Then come back through and put the spackling on. That works great, as you'll see. I still had indents, so coming back through and just putting spackling on worked much better. Yes, I had to prime again after that, but the whole thing was so much easier this way. Then I went ahead and sanded it, and now I'm getting ready to paint it using some burnt sienna, lots of water, and a little bit of white paint. To get a terracotta effect at the end, to this white paint I've added a half teaspoon of baking soda. I'll make that a full teaspoon of baking soda. Because it seems to have so much baking soda on it, like way too much, and of course I did all the spackling, I'm just going to do straight paint, but I wanted it lighter than what I had. This is a paint I found in my garage from the prior owners of this house that painted this color on the walls here. Yeah, I know, eventually it is on my list to things to paint, but so anyway, I'm going to try it with this. Painting this with a blue spray paint just because it also had a primer in it and it needed to be primed first. I probably should have left that thing blue, but I use a latex paint and I'm doing that technique where you put in the baking soda in it. And what do you know, I even used a old mason jar to hold my baking soda. That's a count of, I think in the end I used 2 teaspoons of baking soda to about a half cup of paint there. Hey, quick tip on this though. When you are trying to make a texture work on something, whatever version you're doing, you want to use a regular paintbrush, not a foam brush, because, well, the foam will suck up the baking soda and kind of not help you. I sort of liked the blue, and then I even liked the green, but the look I was going for was that old clay pot, so I've added some black into this and yet more baking soda and some water to make it go around, and that's the paint color I'm going with next. Went ahead and just put black in there. There's some still residual paint with the mix in there, but not very much, so I'm not going to stress it. All right, if this goes to plan, here's what's supposed to happen. I'm going to spray on my matte finish, and while it's kind of still wet and sticky, I'm going to put dirt on my jar. The idea is to give it that, clay piece just recently dug up kind of thing. But then you go ahead and you spray another matte finish on top of it so it keeps the dirt where it is or where you like it on the jar. Ideally, this should be pretty cool and fairly easy. Moving on to my next container. This is actually my favorite. I love the flip top, and the only problem I had was the embossed letters on the top. So I went ahead and used the stucco paint primer combo. Really should have just went with the primer, then the stucco to patch up the seam in the back and the embossed letters on top. After that dried, I went ahead and used chalk paint. I will add that whenever you are using something that thickens your paint, you don't want to clean your brushes in your drain because, well, that thickener will thicken in your drain. This crackle effect could be an omen of something not good coming or really cool. I kind of like it. Had I just used the prime, then spackle, sand, and prime again, I probably wouldn't have had as much crackling there. But like I said, I didn't really mind that effect. So now I wanted to label this for what I was going to use it for. So I just got out my darkest blue because that dark cobalt blue looking color is one of my favorites. Believe it or not, this video is sped up as fast as it can be. I have horrendous handwriting. I know I should probably have used a stencil, but I didn't have one on hand and I didn't feel like going out for one. I must say that the painter's tape, using it for a guide, really was helpful. All right, I've got an idea. I have no idea if it's going to work, but you see this? I painted it. I'm happy. But there's just little caverns because I had to put so much of the texturizing over it, and then when I tried to blah blah blah, it didn't turn out as smooth as I wanted it. So now I'm going to try and embrace it, but I'm doing sort of a Jackson Pollock with splattered blue on top. It could totally mess this up, but it's a shot. I'll learn something, right? Adding the same blue I used up here into my paint container. I'm gonna make it real watery. If you can just tap your brush and you start getting splotches, that's the way to go. Our clear gloss on this one. Not shaking, but I am rolling. Going for a glazed ceramic look in the end. That's why I went for the gloss top coat. Did multiple coats of this, I think 2, possibly 3, light sand in between each coat. Using chalk paint once again, I'm going to go ahead and paint the bottom of this lovely artichoke jar. While I didn't have stenciled letters, I did go out and buy some self-adhesive, reusable stencils, and they kind of worked as promised. And I'm glad I did do this because I learned from it. I wanted to eventually do a wall with stenciling on it so it would look like wallpaper. This is a great way to test out different techniques, is to do them on something small like this before you try it on something major. So after the miserable second attempt, and yes, I even did a third, I decided, okay, I got one I liked, it's cute. Maybe it's that thicker paint mixture I'm using, with the additives to it, so it might be just too much to ask. So I'm going to just try and go with just a prime paint, because this one is no longer sticky. So I'm not really happy with the results of that. But I decided I'd go with the second one, the larger one, and see if I can do a big, beautiful top piece. It's flat, it should do well on this, and like I said, I'm going to just use very light touch in just regular paint. Here's attempt number 2 at this. Lovely. Okay, that's a little gunked up, but I'm good. I have a couple more techniques I'm going to try. Now, because my husband usually uses these jars for his plants, or if we want to use them for food, we don't want to do any painting on the inside. Keeps it food safe, except for this vase. I'm going to give it a shot. I don't hate it, and I'm going to leave it, but I'm going to try and do some spray painting on the inside. Now, I've seen it where you can make it look like terrazzo with doing some polka dots in it, but I don't want it that busy. I'm just going to use green paint, spray it on the inside of the jar. The other technique I'm going to give a shot to is the one where you spray water. Now, they always do it with metallic paints, usually a mirror ball paint or something in that order, so that you can get sort of that, what's the name of that glass? Yeah, that glass. I'm going to go for it and try it just because I happen to have copper on hand, and, well, like copper, I'm going to give a shot at that too. So I'm going to spray it down first and then spray over it. Not in the green, but in copper. All right, just my opinion, but yuck. Not really digging that effect. Take two. Let's try it in blue. You know, it isn't anything that I hoped it would be, but it's still, because of its width, it's perfect for being a paint water glass. Except for I can't see to see if the paint's dirty, so I don't know, maybe I'll come up with some other use for it. The inside is still not painted, so my husband can certainly grow plants in it. I'm gonna go ahead and put a gloss on it because I have my can of gloss open.
Hey there, could you please help out this channel by clicking subscribe, and if you click the bell, it'll even give you an alert when the next video comes up. Thanks.
Time for some finishing touches. Using hot glue and a piece of rope or string I found in the garage, I am adding that to the top. You could also use twine, it would look nice too. You do have one more option if you have some handles laying around. These can be glued to the tops of these and they look super cute. I actually considered doing it on these, except for, well, it was my first time doing a stencil and I kind of liked how it turned out. Not to mention because there's screw caps, I didn't want anybody trying to pull them off, but they actually do look rather attractive. And some hot glue on top there, that would be all it would take. Maybe an epoxy, easy enough. Well, a parade of jars. Here's how it came out. The one that was the big plastic jar, it's a decorative sort of clay jar now. I kind of like it. I know that if you go on YouTube, you can find plenty of other videos that with clay, you just make the shape of a handle and then you bake it and then you glue it back on and you use the same paint process you did for everything else to do the handles to make it look like that, and it looks great. The only reason I selected not to do that though is because I believe I'm just going to be giving this one to my husband. He's got some different stuff for his plants that are just going to be in it, and the handles would kind of get in the way. Way long time ago, I thought I would try paper mache, and that's kind of what I did with this. And then we shopped Costco, so we bought an 18-pound bag of flour. Yeah, my handwritten font's not that great, but this has been totally useful for it. It's super cute and it works, and I imagine better artistry and more attention to detail, you'd come up with something really great on this. The two biggest successes were actually the easiest to do. These two. I absolutely love how they turned out. This one was now, of course, the one that I sprayed inside, and so you can't put a food product in it because it's got the paint in it. But they're cotton ball keepers, and we've got two bathrooms. This is going to look lovely. And then we've got the sort of successful item. It was the tin for hot chocolate. It is now dish pot soap holder. I love it because instead of having the big plastic tub sitting up on the counter or underneath the sink. This can sit up on the counter and it's easy to get to, and I kind of like the colors. Less than successful. That was my attempt to do a terracotta vase. And well, okay. Then the one that was kind of a fail. I did put some shiny gloss on it, and it actually looks a bit better. I can't use it as a water dish for painting or anything like that, and I did the splatter effect on the top, but it's great for the end of the night. My husband, he has changed, he throws it in a bowl and it usually spills over. Well, now he's got a great big jar to put it in. Okay, it's not the best thing in the world, but I see now with the gloss on it that it's got potential. So maybe if I rework it, or well, if you try it, you'll have much better success. Do tell, put it in the comments below, and thanks for watching.